Big tech companies are in loggerheads with many countries over their security policies. European Union is now proposing to impose hefty fines to keep the tech giants in check. So let's tell you what are the draft laws in detail. Now there are two sets of rules that will be overseeing the tech giants. First, the Digital Markets Act and the Digital Services Act. The former will target online gatekeepers, companies that control data and access to their platforms. The big tech companies could face a list of regulations, such as it will be mandatory to share certain amount of data with rivals and the regulators, and stop favoring their own services on their platforms or harvesting data from their platforms to compete their businesses and business users. They will also be required to inform regulators of planned takeovers, which means if a company aims to buy a smaller rival to kill them off, they will have to inform the official body. Now, what happens if a company breaks these rules? Defaulters will face fines as high as 10% of their annual global turnover, and repeat offenders can be broken up as a last resort. The Digital Services Act also targets very large online platforms with more than 45 million users in Europe alone. European law makes sure that tech giants are required to do more to tackle illegal content such as hate speech and child sexual abuse material, misuse of their platforms that impinges on fundamental rights, and intentional manipulation of platforms such as using bots to influence elections and public health will be condemned. The companies will also be required to publish details of their online advertisers and show the parameters used by their algorithms to suggest and rank information. Independent auditors will be deployed to monitor compliance. Joining us on this broadcast is Lucy, who's joining us from Brussels. Lucy, as we understand, most European countries are on board with these laws. Has there been any reaction from the tech giants so far? And for our viewers, quickly just explain what was the real pressing need for bringing these laws or proposing these laws?
Well, this is about reining in the power of big tech firms, which the EU has believed for some time carry out unfair business practices, such as eliminating rivals by buying up smaller companies. The EU Commission defined such huge tech firms as so-called gateways, meaning they have a huge scope, they have access to massive amounts of consumer data. That means they are able to dominate the market and therefore push out smaller firms. So what the European Commission wants to do is create a fairer marketplace for digital businesses. So with these proposals, yes, there is broad support from the EU 27, although it will be some time before these laws are actually put into place. The proposals that we were presented with yesterday still need to go through the European Parliament. They still need to be scrutinised by each of the EU 27 member states, and then those laws will be subjected to influence from company lobbyists, from big tech firms in the US, working here in Brussels and elsewhere in Europe, and to other trade associations as well. So whilst there is support here in the EU about creating that fairer marketplace, it will be some time before these laws are actually put into place.
You just stay with us. India's antitrust body is also investigating allegations that Google abused or is abusing its market position to promote its payments app. The official body is also probing Amazon and rival Flipkart over alleged violations of competition law and discounting practices and policies as well. So it's happening over the world that tech giants are facing a pushback now, and it has created a rift within the tech giants. For example, Facebook has now urged the European Union to rein in Apple, saying that Apple controls an entire ecosystem from device to App Store and apps, and uses the platform to harm developers and consumers. So it appears that the tech giants are also divided.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this isn't at all the first action that the EU, for its part, has taken on big tech giants. And as you were outlining there in the India case, it is about tech giants giving preferential treatment to their own in-house products and services. And that was certainly something that was brought up during the press conference here in Brussels on Wednesday. It's one of a number of business practices that are drawing scrutiny here in Europe. Also data harvesting practices, as I say, mergers and acquisitions, as well as giving preferential treatment to in-house services. So what the EU is asking for is greater transparency, that big tech firms let the EU know about any major mergers and acquisitions ahead of time, that they share data, practices and other information with regulators as well. It's about greater transparency. But the message was clear here from those who have headed up this legislation that this wasn't about making Europe a hostile environment for big tech firms. We, of course, had that action from the US against Google, which was saying that Google had become too big to manage. The EU was saying this wasn't about attacking the size of these companies, but it was about making them conduct themselves in a fair way that allowed for fair competition. So the message is clear. It's about greater transparency, greater governance and stricter penalties for unfair practices, but not about pushing out these companies altogether.
Lisa Hugh, thank you so much for joining us. Even as experts are saying that this process could take months or even a year to implement finally. Moving on.